I know it's a bit weird to see me do an Iceberg video, but I want to say I have been watching Iceberg content for like the past couple of years, and I've always wanted to do one myself. So I'm going to go off of my favorite fighting game, Super Smash Bros. And this Iceberg is going to cover some obscure facts about the series, starting from least obscure and going to most obscure, which you know if you know how icebergs work. And the iceberg we're going to be covering was made by Natter John in the Smash Bros subreddit. I usually don't browse Reddit, but I decided to go searching for cool stuff like this, and I wanted to do something no one else has seen. So I went with one that I hadn't seen anyone else cover. So leave a like and subscribe, and let's dive deep into the Super Smash Bros. Obscure Facts Iceberg. Masahiro Sakurai is the creator of Smash Bros, and although it might be mildly irrelevant, he's also the creator of Kirby, which will come into play, just not right now, you know? Palutena's guidance and Snake's codec calls. When playing as Pit on Palutena's temple or as Snake on Shadow Moses Island, if you do a down taunt for 1 frame, it'll start a little conversation between either Pit and Palutena or Snake and Colonel. And after you do this, though, you have to make sure to not get hit for 5 seconds while in this animation, or else the little conversation won't play. This is all just a small little Easter egg for people who know about it, and it gives a small little fun fact about the enemy character. The fighters are toys theory. This theory sprouts from the intro cutscene to Super Smash Bros. 64, where all the characters are grabbed by what appears to be Master Hand, and all ragdoll and look to be toys as they're grabbed out of a toy box. This is continued in Melee and Brawl as the characters are shown to be trophies. The Subspace Emissary is the story mode for Brawl that can be played both co-op and single player, and is also centered specifically shown to be in the Smash universe, as there are only a couple cameo appearances from enemies outside of this universe. And it's also the only time that there were actual story cutscenes in the Smash Bros. Game. It's also the final time because Sakurai got mad that people were watching it on YouTube and weren't experiencing it while playing the game. So I'd say to try and play it if you can. Master Core is the main boss of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, and is only fought if your starting difficulty in Classic Mode is 5.1 or above. He appears in the forms of Giant, Beast, Edges, and a shadow form of the player. In the Wii U version, though, he turns into Master Fortress upon defeat if you're at 8 or 9.0 intensity, but if he is defeated in any version of the game, he also becomes Master Core, which is a defenseless ball that must be defeated to end the run, that just kind of sits in the middle of the stage. Project M is a fan project of Super Smash Bros. Brawl that makes the game run faster and adds a couple more characters. There's actually a lot of branches off of Project M, such as Project Plus and Rex, which add even more characters to the game while keeping the base faster gameplay. Giga Bowser is a form of Bowser that will only show up in Super Smash Bros. And he also appears for the first time as a boss in Melee after defeating the original Bowser. After this, though, he only shows up as a final smash from Brawl onwards until Ultimate in the World of Light game mode, in which he can be fought as a boss. The amiibo shortages were a result of both Nintendo not making enough amiibo to ship out, but they were also caused a pretty decent amount by scalpers, also known as why I paid $50 just to get a NES amiibo. The slang term "no Johns" in the Smash community just means no excuses, which was made up, surprisingly enough, because a player named John came up with so many stupid excuses for losing. The Smash Bros. Competitive scene is very similar to every other fighting game's competitive scene, but most importantly, the character tier list between games does change a lot, along with between updates. So I have a feeling that's what they were trying to point out. It could also be trying to point out how mad the community tends to get over new characters getting added, such as Steve. The Fighter Ballot was a survey for Smash 4 asking players who they wanted in the game. In the end, Sora would have came out on top, but couldn't be added at the time, so Bayonetta, the highest voted feasible character, very sketchy wording here, was added as DLC for Smash 4. Surprisingly, though, These results are thought to have been rigged because Bayonetta's data got found 2 weeks before the ballot even went up. The Grinch leak is known for a cutout of the 2018 Grinch design being featured in an unseen post at the time, which made the leak seem credible, although this was kind of the main part of the leaker's motive, was to try and just mess with people, because they were a French marketing agent, by the way, and the supposed leaker made a fake render of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate mural with characters like the fucking choir kids from Rhythm Heaven being shown. Waluigi, that's all it says. Nintendo, please add Waluigi. Please, we need this. The ESRB leak. This leak was a ESRB board member on 4chan sharing their gameplay, the characters that were going to be added, and on top of that, hinting towards mechanics in the game through 3 separate waves before eventually getting closed down by Nintendo themselves. The pick of the day was something that Nintendo did before Smash 4's release that went on for about a year, where one pick from the 3DS or Wii U versions would come out every single weekday until its release in Japan. Plant Gang is a term for people who main piranha plants on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. There's nothing else to this entry. The free Melee movement was started because of a cease and desist in 2020 by Nintendo to stop tourneys held on Slippy, which is a Melee online client, and it resulted in a protest of Nintendo services from all the competitive players affected. The Fire Emblem controversy. I don't really know why this title is a controversy, but it's really just covering how many people got mad about the excess amount of Fire Emblem characters in Smash Bros. Because everyone just thinks that they're just the same swordsman over and over pretty much. And even the unique ones are still hated on them just because they're Fire Emblem. I also joined in on this hate because I feel like there should be more than just Fire Emblem in our roster. I kind of wish there was more Earthbound, personally. Starting off Layer 2, we have Sakurai broke his own rules. Now, as dumb of an entry as this is, apparently people think Sakurai broke a no third-party rule post-Brawl, but I don't really know why people were mad about it, because I think it kind of makes the roster look cooler with Pac-Man and stuff in it. Smashified was a Smash-based art project where characters were designed to look like they were added to Smash 4, and seems to have ended in 2018, possibly due to the release of Ultimate. Dragon King the Fighting Game is the original game that was turned into Smash 64, and it's probably the only reason that Captain Falcon even got added, because he's just a recycled model from the fighters that were used, the little mannequin guys. I think you can see it on screen. You can play as Master Hand in Melee if you put your controller into port 3 when starting game and entering the name select screen at the same time. Time constraints. Melee and Smash 4 were under some crazy time constraints, with Wii U and 3DS having 2 years combined to make the full game. And this is actually now a double entry because the next one is Melee was made in a year. And much like the last entry, Melee was actually made over the course of 13 months, and during the development, the developers had no holidays and had a very low amount of breaks to try and get this done. Brawl delays. The original release date for Brawl was slated for December 2007, but had to be pushed back to March of 2008 after Sonic's release trailer, so many people contribute this to the delay, as Sonic was a very last-minute character to be added. 3DS limitations. The 3DS is less powerful than the Wii U, so many things had to be sacrificed for this, such as replacement stages for the 3DS that were easier to make, such as Rainbow Road and Pac-Maze, and the removal of the Ice Climbers in both versions to keep the parallel between the two rosters. The Smash Dojo was the way that Nintendo shared screenshots from Brawl to the community until its release, much like how the pick of the day was that I covered before, although this did come before that. Smash is a spin-off of Kirby Superstar. Smash shares many similarities to Kirby's moves in Kirby Superstar, such as the bubble shield he uses, the many jumps he has, and just overall the entire control scheme, so it's thought that this is the basis behind Smash Bros. Battle damage. Brawl originally allowed gear to get damaged from use and eventually break, with textures of swords, bats, and helmets being shown damaged in the files. Mizzo is a scrapped enemy from the Subspace Emissary in Brawl that only shows up in one room of the Halberd interior level as a captured enemy like everyone else in the room, and has a trophy only accessible via the coin launcher. And although it was not confirmed, they were thought to be a water enemy that would damage you by running into you based on their color, shape, and the way that their animations look inside a room. Melee was Roy's debut game. Roy was first shown off in Melee because his actual main Fire Emblem game that he's part of was delayed until after Melee's release, and the only reason it was added was because both of them were being developed at the same time. Scrapped masterpieces. In Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, there are text in the files suggesting that the original Super Smash Bros. For the N64 was going to be a masterpiece, and it would have been the only N64 masterpiece in that game. The original Smash ballot, this was held for Super Smash Bros. 64 going into Melee, and asked everyone who they wanted to see in the game. And the top person voted was Bowser, who actually did end up showing up in Melee. Top secret trophies. Melee used a cloaking device from Perfect Dark and motion sensor bomb from 007 in North America, where both of those have to be referred to as top secret when referred to in the trophies shown in section to comply with the rating boards because it's an M-rated IP for both of those. In Japan, though, both of the textures used are for 007 and are kept as being set from GoldenEye 007. The beam sword uses lightsaber sounds. In Japan, for the first version of Smash 64, the beam sword made sounds that were near identical to the lightsabers from Star Wars. This was removed in later editions for the North America and PAL releases, though. Final smashes in Smash 64. In the files, there are characters saying their final smash voice lines that were fully ready for use, but the ball and the smash meter, both of which showing up in Ultimate, of course, were not to be found, and it's possible that it could not happen due to hardware limitations. Official leaks. I'm going to take a guess and say that this is when IPs are accidentally shown in the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate credits. And even if it isn't that, it could also just be referring to the Smash Dojo or Pick of the Day where they show off certain characters that haven't been announced until then. Or it could also be referring to when they upload certain things on YouTube that aren't meant to show up yet, such as when they accidentally showed the title of a Castlevania track right before the release of Simon & Richter. The Forbidden 7 are the 7 characters planned for Brawl that got scrapped right before it came out, with those being Dr. Mario, Dixie Kong, Toon Sheik, who's assumed to be Tetra, Toon Zelda, Plus One Minun, played like the Ice Climbers, Mewtwo, and Roy. Daisy's third eye. The Daisy trophy in Melee has a hidden eye on the back of her head, and that's pretty much it for this. Mario Maker inaccuracies. The Mario Maker stage, based on Super Mario Maker 1, not only has slopes, which came out in the second game, but it also has placeable water and lava blocks, which happens in the plains layout, which is completely impossible, let alone having both of them at the same time. Mr. Game & Watch is a 3D model. This title kind of explains itself, but if you have the amiibo of Mr. Game & Watch, you can actually see him in 3D if you have him scanned in. Steve broke Twitter. Upon Steve's reveal, the amount of posts incoming all at once crashed Twitter for a couple hours, which is a pretty major crash for such a big website. The EGM magazine Sonic and Tails rumor. The rumor goes as if you played Melee, specifically Cool Melee, and got 20 KOs, both Sonic and Tails would be unlocked. This was made on April 1st as an April Fool's joke, but due to the backlash of people trying to say that it didn't work and stuff, they actually made a promotion where if you record yourself doing the 20 KOs and sent it to them, you'd get a free copy of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Edition, which is pretty cool. Exclusive trophies. In Melee, there were some hidden trophies, such as Mario and Yoshi, along with Samus Unmasked, which were only given out at events handed out by Nintendo. Sakurai overworks himself. Sakurai works very hard on his games and has gone so far to work with an IV drip connected to his arm so he can go on as normal in his directs and stuff. but the community kind of sees this as him working himself to death. Luckily, he has said publicly that since then his schedule has gotten a lot better. Anyway, that's it for part 1 of the Super Smash Bros. Iceberg. If you want a part 2, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.